So as you know, then I had to leave the monastery and return to Canada because both my parents had fallen ill with COVID and my mother was in hospital. It was a kind of emergency situation. In fact, I've left all my stuff in Nepal. And it quickly became apparent to me that I wouldn't be able to return and continue with my studies. Return to Nepal wouldn't happen. I would have to stick around because there's no one else to look after my parents. And it wouldn't be right just to stick them in a home or assisted care. I mean, we meditate for years and years on generating bodhicitta, using our parents as our focus. And then when they get sick, if we just stay in the monastery and ignore them, then that would be hypocritical, wouldn't it? So I made the decision that I was going to stay. And the first thought that came into my mind was, well, what can I do that would be of benefit here in North America, in Canada? So to be quite honest, my first thought was not that I should release videos on YouTube. I mean, I did think about it. But when I had a look, I saw that there were loads of people giving spiritual advice online. Most of it's misinformation. But also, what people are looking for is not what I would call the Dharma. People are looking for personal happiness and to escape their mundane suffering. They want to experience meditative bliss or have experiences of non-thought, or they're looking for something to attain. It's a kind of spiritual materialism. They want to achieve some higher state of consciousness. And so you don't need me releasing videos on YouTube to tell you that. There's plenty of people doing it. You've got your pick. Everybody's just patting you on the head. It's what we call kind of sedative meditation. It's like a tranquilizer or something to calm you down. It's the way you treat a young baby when they're crying in their crib. You just stroke their head and say, "Oh, quiet, quiet, be quiet, it's okay. Don't worry, there's no self. Everything's non-dual. You can be happy." It's just the way a parent talks to a little child. There's nothing in Dharma about that. There's nothing related to the Dharma. So anyway, I didn't think I would release videos on YouTube, and this isn't about releasing videos on YouTube. Something else I wanted to say. So I thought, how can I be of benefit? Now I'm a monk, right? So if you're a Hinayana monk or Theravadan, then your primary concern is non-harm. Not to do things that bring harm. I mean, they don't even cook for themselves, and they're not allowed to buy shopping. And there's reasons why they don't cook for themselves. For example, it's seen to be a non-virtue to destroy a seed of a plant. And so they get a layperson to do it. If they're going to eat, I mean, technically, I don't know what people do in reality, but if a monk is to eat nuts, let's say, then a layperson has to roast them for them. And if they eat grapes or fruit with seeds in it, then the fruit has to be cut into 4 pieces. So the seed has to be destroyed by a layperson before it's given to the monk, so that the monk doesn't commit any negativity. Now you might think that's a bit strange, because you're getting a layperson to do the dirty work for you. But the layperson hasn't taken vows, so it's not a natural, what we call natural wrongdoing. It's a prescribed wrongdoing. The monks and nuns have taken vows to avoid this kind of negativity. And it is seen as a negativity. And the reason for that is because in order to achieve a liberation from samsara and to become an arhat, then they have to have very pure conduct. Well, I'm not a Hinayana monk. I'm not a Theravadan monk. And we don't focus so much on conduct. In fact, probably the Tibetans are the worst out of all of them. But primarily, if you're a Mahayana monk, then your precept, your primary concern, is to be of benefit. When you say be of benefit, then that should be benefit in line with the Dharma. And I've spent 12 years in retreat. I've had tens of thousands of hours of teachings. Every day we get Dharma teachings, 4 to 6 hours a day. And in the 4-year retreat in Scotland, then we were meditating 12 to 16 hours a day in, day out, with no holidays for 4 years. So it's tens of thousands of hours of meditation and study. So I should use my experience and my knowledge to benefit people in line with the Dharma, right? So there's no point in me going out and just teaching stuff that other people teach on YouTube, like just calm down, you'll be okay. Everything's non-dual, don't worry. Just stay in the present moment and you will become enlightened. To me, that's just a lie. I'm not going to lie to people. I need to tell people what I've understood, what I've experienced, what I've seen in meditation. So I thought, what should I do? And in the Dharma, associated with monasteries and Dharma organizations, then there's 3 wheels of activity. And the first one is the wheel of education, or the wheel of study. So typically every monastery has what's called a shedra. And a shedra is basically a university or college. So you could say monastic college, but it doesn't have to be just for monastics. It doesn't have to be for monks and nuns alone. There's no reason why a lay person can't participate. In fact, Kempo David from the temple in Richmond went to Shedra as a layperson. He only became a monk later. So he did all his study as a layperson. There's no reason why it can't be lay people. So instead of saying a monastic college, you could say a Buddhist university. Okay. So there's this one branch, or this one wheel of activity, which is education. Well, this is not something I can do. In order to do this, to establish a monastic college or a Buddhist university, you need to be a kind of Rinpoche or a Lama with a big name and lots of students, because, quite frankly, it takes tens of millions of dollars to establish a university. And I don't have those sort of means. I haven't got that kind of money. I haven't got rich students. It's not something I can feasibly do. And also, I'm not learned, you know. You need somebody in charge who's like very learned. And not only that, but many high teachers have tried to establish universities. At first, the Karmapa, 16th Karmapa, Rikpa Dorji, tried to establish a university. And also Trungpa Rinpoche did, but it failed because it's an incredibly difficult thing to do. And also, if you establish a university in the West, well, you're not going to get anybody coming anyway. Because it's not like 1 week a year Dharma teaching. We're talking about people studying all year round with very few holidays. Maybe a few days a month, you know. Maybe have Christmas off. And other than that, they study from early morning to late at night. In the Karma Kagyu tradition, then we do 12 years. And that's intense studying. You know, they get up early, they study all day, and they debate throughout the day, and do all kinds of things. And the Gelugpas, they spend 21 years before they get their degree. And they really go for it. Sometimes they're up till 11 or 12 at night debating. They get very little sleep, and they study like that day in, day out, year after year, for 21 years. So you're not going to get Westerners to participate in such a thing. So even if I had the money, if I had the ability, there'd be no point in me trying to start a university. So that's not something I thought I even considered. It's not something I could do. And then there's the second wheel of activity, and that's what we call the Drupja. That's the wheel of accomplishment. So that's related to practice. Now, every monastery has a retreat center, and some have more than one. And these are retreat centers where people do the traditional 3-year or 4-year retreat. And what you do primarily in that is you do sadhanas, you do pujas, you bang drums, you do lots of chanting, ring bells, and do lots of visualization, do lots of pujas, with talk offerings, sort of feast offerings, sort of thing. And you do it, and it's really intense. And many people are familiar with this. And actually, in the West, in North America, there are lots of these. There aren't really universities. There are some places where people study. Not like they study in the East, but there are some places where people study. But retreats, there are many retreats, and actually many of them are empty. Because they can't find people who are willing to give up 3 or 4 years of their life and go live in seclusion in cloister. You know, when we were on retreat, we didn't see anybody. We never left the front door for 4 years. You know, even when the helicopter flew over, we would hide so nobody would see us. So there are actually quite a few retreats in America and in Canada, but they struggle to find people to do these retreats. It's very difficult. And when people do these retreats, they often go in with no education. They don't really know what they're doing. They go in at best, then they know how to chant the words. They may not even understand the words, but they certainly don't know the inner meaning. And basically, they chant and ring bells and bang drums, and they do that for 4 years, and they come out and think, well, what was that all about? But this is not the sort of thing I would even consider trying to establish. Like I said, there's many of them in the West. A lot of them are empty. They struggle to find people to go to them, but it takes, again, lots of money. A big lama, a big teacher with lots of students would have to generate millions of dollars to establish a retreat center, this kind of retreat center. So that's not something I at all considered. I wouldn't even bother. There's no point. And so the third wheel, this third wheel of activity, is the wheel of work. Sounds a bit strange, right? But basically, monasteries are where all the kind of worldly work goes on. Monasteries are very worldly institutions. They're called white samsara. There's black samsara and white samsara. Black samsara, and this is not a racist thing, it's just the way they talk about it. You could say negative samsara and positive samsara. So the negative samsara is people engaging in their daily lives and like cheating each other in business and slaughtering animals to survive. This is the sort of thing. Families with children. Well, probably most people don't see these to be negative things. But in terms of the Dharma, then you're told to give up your attachments and go into the wilderness and practice and meditate. So samsara, the dark samsara, is where people are just solely getting on with their mundane lives. And with that, they are complicit in the suffering of others, and they have to do a lot of negativity just to get by. And then there's this white samsara, or this positive samsara, and that's monasteries. They're institutions. They're basically very worldly institutions. And so, do we have monasteries in the West? Well, not really. And again, how would I ever be able to establish a monastery? It doesn't take tens of millions, it takes hundreds of millions. I mean, the buildings alone cost a fortune. But we do have this branch of activity in the West, and a lot of it. This is the main thing we have, and these are Dharma centers. So every town you go to has got some house that's converted into a Dharma center, a property that they've rented. And what these Dharma centers do is they generate funds. They raise money, basically. And that's what monasteries do as well in the East. All the faithful people, they travel to the monasteries, they make offerings. When somebody dies, they have prayers done. And they do all of this, and it generates money for the monastery. And the money that they generate gets used in the universities and the retreat centers and to pay for the bills. So this is what this wheel of work is. Worldly work, institutional work. But we have lots of these. There's Dharma centers everywhere. Every High Lama, every teacher with a name is starting Dharma centers in every town they can find. If they haven't got a monk, then they find a lay person in that town, and they get them to start a website, and they open their doors, and what do they do in the West? Well, they sell books and incense and statues and things like that. It's a complete commercial thing. I have no interest in this whatsoever. And besides, there's loads of them. It's a kind of thing like a famous teacher has. They have them like in every major town in America. There's Kala Rinpoche centers, the Karmapa centers, the Gelugpa centers, the Dalai Lama centers, Jangyang center, all kinds of things everywhere. And basically, these places just raise money. In the Gelugpa, that's the Dalai Lama's tradition, it's a little bit better because they have lots of teachings. They really regard education to be important. So really, they're better than we are in many ways because of that. But I wouldn't be interested in any way in having a Dharma center. To me, it's a nightmare. It's just completely worldly work, and I'm not interested in that. So I thought, what are we lacking? What are we missing here? And what we're missing that is feasible in the West is a place of practice. So this is what you would call a meditation retreat. But it's not what you think. When you say meditation retreat, when I say that to people, if I'm traveling on the ferry or going here and there, and I say, I want to establish a meditation retreat, the first thing that pops into mind is a place like a yoga center where you go for a week. You pay like $300, $400 a day or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. I know it's something like that. You get a room, and then there's some nice organic vegetarian food, and you do meditation, and you have some little talks twice a day, and you go there for 10 days, or a weekend, or a week, something like that. That's not what I'm talking about. That's commercial. I'm not talking about anything to do with commercial activity. There's plenty of those anyway. I mean, in Canada and America, there's loads of places you can go. You can go for a week retreat with Rupert Spira for $3,600 or Eckhart Tolle. There's loads of those things. 1 week here, 1 week there, maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, if you can get the time off. I'm not talking about that. When I say a place of practice or a meditation retreat, I'm talking about these places you get in the mountains of Nepal and in Tibet. Somewhere isolated, in the middle of nowhere. And there'll be a few little log cabins or huts. And in them, you'll find some people who have been practicing for 20 or 30 years. People who are dedicating their life to meditation because they take it that seriously. Now, it would be hard to do something like that here, really, the way they do it there. And that's because in America, we don't have the support. In Tibet, if you go off into the mountain and meditate in a cave, then some nomad will come and bring you butter and cheese and yogurt and meat, that sort of thing. So you can get by, so you can survive. But if you did that here in Canada, you would starve to death or freeze to death. Nobody's going to support you. In fact, they'll arrest you. So it's not possible. But I see that this is feasible. To establish a place where people can dedicate themselves to practice. This is feasible. And set it up in a way so that they can get on with their meditation and not have to worry about work. Because in the West, I would say there aren't many people who are really serious about meditation. For most people, it's just a hobby. They might do it in the morning for half an hour. If they're really diligent, maybe 2 hours a day. That's not what I'm talking about. I have met some people, they work a day job, 8 hours a day, and they meditate 4 hours a day. And they do that, that's how they live their life. But that's very difficult to try to do that and to gain accomplishment in your meditation. It's almost impossible because you're always wrapped up in worldly life. What you need is a place where you can just meditate and somebody will kind of sort out the other stuff for you so you can get on with it. And I think I can do this. This is possible. Now, are there people who want to do that? Well, to be honest, I imagine in Canada there might be a few, a handful. There might be maybe 5 or 6, maybe a dozen at most. I mean, there'll be plenty of people who say they really want to do that. But when it actually comes down to getting yourself in a meditation hut, meditating for like 12 hours a day, and never leaving the place all year round, then there are very few people who would really actually be interested in doing that. They get bored after a while, or they want to go to the shops or see a movie, You don't find people who are really serious about the spiritual path. There's plenty of people out there who just want a bit of bliss, right? There's these 3 experiences of meditation: bliss, clarity, and non-thought. There's plenty of people who want that stuff in measured amounts, as long as it's not too much. But there's very few people who are really serious about gaining accomplishment through meditation. They would rather be told that you don't have to put out any effort. What people want to hear is, don't worry, you're already enlightened, You don't need a goal. Goals are wrong. If you have a goal, then you can't achieve your goal. This kind of thing. It doesn't really make sense. I mean, all the masters of the path, they exerted themselves with great diligence in order to achieve their goals. And they had goals. They wanted to be free from samsara. They wanted to become enlightened. And they knew it was difficult. So something you need to know here. There's what we call 3 types of capable individual. A capable individual is somebody who's able to practice the Dharma. So there's 3. There's the lesser individual, the middling individual, on the greater individual. Now this lesser individual is not lesser by any means. Compared to us, this is a very high level of practice. So what are these? Well, the lesser capable individual, so that means they're lower of the three, but they're still capable, they have ability. This person has what you call the highest worldly view. And the highest worldly view is, as a baseline, a belief in karma, cause and effect, and also a belief in past and future lives, as a bare minimum. Now this lesser individual, having a firm belief in karma, cause and effect in past and future lives, then does not work for well-being in this lifetime at all. They're not interested in it. They realize that to gain the happiness of the higher realms, that means the human realm and the Deva realm or the God realm, then one needs to engage in virtue, such as generosity, discipline, patience, etc. And so this individual applies themselves to practice so that in future lives they will be born in pleasurable states. And the reason for being born in those pleasurable states doesn't necessarily have to be just for pleasure. It could be so that they're in a better position for practicing the Dharma. So this type of individual can practice in retreat because they won't be concerned with worldly and mundane enjoyments and distractions at all. And really this level is much higher than our level because we spend most of our time thinking about this life and, moreover, right now, what I want out of life. This life and what's in the moment now, that's what I want. What can I get? What can I be entertained with? What kind of food can I eat? That's all we're concerned about. So this lesser Dharma individual is not concerned with any of those things. Now the middling individual, what is that? Well, the middling individual is synonymous with somebody in the Hinayana or the Theravada. So this individual is not interested in rebirth in higher realms, in the mundane world, in samsara, at all. They only want to be liberated from samsara. Now when I say this is the Theravadan or Hinayana view, that doesn't mean that everybody who's a Theravadan monk has this. In fact, very few do. Very small percentage. Because this requires, as a bare minimum, is this uncontrived renunciation. So they already have belief in past and future lives. They already have belief in karma, cause and effect. But on top of that, then you must have renunciation. And what is renunciation? It's turning away from the mundane world. No interest in the mundane world whatsoever. It doesn't matter if you're born as a god, or as a king, or the richest man in the world, Elon Musk. It doesn't matter. They're not interested. They want to be liberated from samsara. They seek the state of an arahat. An arahat who is a foe destroyer, who's destroyed the kleshas, destroyed the negative emotions, and then gone beyond this world, realized no self. And then there's a greater Dharma individual. And this is what is synonymous with the Mahayana view. And the greater individual is not interested in personal liberation from samsara. They are solely concerned with seeking ultimate Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So this is what I was talking about before, right? This bodhicitta. So they want to become a Buddha for the benefit of beings. And their path is the path of the Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva that works only for the benefit of others. And this is an incredibly high level, because not only have they no concern with the mundane world, mundane pleasures and happiness, also they're not interested in gaining nirvana. So it's called the non-abiding in samsara or nirvana. This is the great Mahayana view and the great Mahayana practice. Now for us, we are not middle capable individuals or greater capable individuals. In fact, it's very difficult for us to be a lesser capable individual. Because in order to do that, then we have to set aside all our mundane concerns for this life and only work for future lives. So as a bare minimum, the lesser individual has this highest worldly view, this conviction, 100% conviction in past and future lives, in karma, cause and effect. The middling individual, on top of that, has got renunciation, this turning away from samsara. And the third type, the greater capable individual, has got the Mahayana view of bodhicitta, that is loving kindness, compassion for all sentient beings, and the will and the wish solely to achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of others. If I establish a place of practice, a meditation retreat, then any of these three types of people are welcome to come. It's going to be very difficult to find these three types of people. But also somebody who's just serious about their practice. And I don't care what they practice. I mean, some people criticize me and say that I'm differentiating between different types of views and different types of practices. But ultimately, I see anybody who is sincere about their spiritual practice to be even better than I am. Somebody who's really, truly sincere, who's willing to dedicate their life and all their time to their spiritual path, then I don't care. I've got great respect for that. I've got no problem with that whatsoever. And I'd be very happy for somebody like that to come and practice in my meditation retreat. Because I know they won't be wasting their time. Because these are all beneficial paths. Even someone who just wants to meditate on the love of Jesus Christ, to me, is a great practitioner. The truth is, we tend to talk big. We've got very big ideas about spirituality. We've got very big ideas about the Dharma. But when it comes down to it, when it comes down to our practice, then we seldom apply ourselves with any vigor. And this is what's needed. Because if spirituality is truly to come to the West, then it requires people with experience and realization. We need Westerners who have meditative experience, who understand meditation. You know, I haven't met anybody who understands meditation. I haven't seen anybody who understands meditation on YouTube. And I say that sort of thing and people get upset, but I'm being honest. I haven't seen anybody, I mean, they might be, but I haven't seen anybody who understands actual, real meditation. There are people who want to calm their minds. There are people who want to get rid of thought, but that's not what I call actual meditation. That's just shamatha. It's common to all spiritual and religious traditions. It's nothing special. So I don't think I'll go on anymore. And if I say a lot, then people just get upset. How you can tell if somebody is an advanced spiritual practitioner is because they're very open-minded. The more open-minded you become, the better your practice is going. And so you can tell, because you can say a few words, you can criticize somebody's teacher or suggest that they haven't awakened to non-dual wisdom, and they lose it. They get upset. It hurts them. That's a sign that they haven't accomplished anything. Because somebody who has accomplished the spiritual path becomes very open. They become transparent. Emotions, negative, positive, whatever, they don't arise strongly for them. And they certainly won't get upset. And the other thing is, they're very, very humble. People who have accomplishment don't go on about it. It seems that there are many people online who are just ready to claim awakening at the drop of a hat. Everybody's out there claiming awakening. When they awakened, how many years ago it was. But that's a sign that they haven't. The people who have achieved something don't really talk about it. I mean, they could in private with their students, but in general they won't brag about it. They won't have a lot to say. They'll probably just look like ordinary people to you. I mean, you look at Chatrul Rinpoche, he looked like a beggar. You might see him wandering around the mountains. You wouldn't think he was anything. And it doesn't go around saying, I am a Dzogchen master, please come listen to my teachings. You know, selling tickets, $3,600 a week. Come listen to me talk. They don't. They're humble. They're in the wilderness, in the snow, in the caves, eating meager food. You've heard of Milarepa, right? Well, Milarepa was the most accomplished yogi that ever lived. Well, if a few students showed up, or he started to get famous, he would disappear. He would run away. He didn't like it. That's a sign of a true practitioner. Well, anyway, I hope, that's my wish, my plan, is that I can establish a meditation retreat. And I don't mean a commercial venture. I don't mean like a yoga retreat. I don't mean to invite people and charge them money. That's not what I'm talking about. to establish a place of practice that can support and sustain people who are serious about their practice. And if they want to look at a candle, I'm fine with that. If they want to meditate on a candle or whatever kind of meditation you want to do, I've got no problem, as long as you're sincere. So it's getting late and the sun is going down and I'm tired, so I'm gonna have to go. But thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.